If every brain in the world were working at full capacity, even then the achievements of the intellect would be as nothing, when compared to what may be done by mind and soul working together under the full light of spiritual illumination. When man has subjugated his passions, brought his mind under the control of spirit, when soul stands unfettered and undimmed, it is then, and then only, that he will begin to get some idea of his exalted birthright. The world has always gazed with awe upon a miracle. But to the highly developed man, the master, miracles are like the play of children, as when a child blows bubbles. The real master manipulates the forces of nature as a mechanic manipulates the levers of his machine. He is master of those forces. They must obey him. He is no longer a helpless drifter in nature's vortex. But how fallen from his high estate is the average man! How pitiable his plight! Bent as a twig by every breeze that blows, a prey to every hostile creature that crosses his path, a victim of poverty, disease, pain, death. He doesn't know that he is a god clothed in rags. He is master of the universe, going about begging a crust of bread. He is a king, prostrated before his own servants. He is a prisoner, walled in by his own ignorance. Would he be free? He has only to walk out of his self-constructed prison. None holds ye, but yourself, says the noble Buddha. The new social order. Science is the key note of this age of the intellect. Science is the magnum opium of this age. It may almost be said to be the habit of the age. It is the vogue. The practical or applied sciences are daily becoming more popular. To science, men are turning more and more for the solution of all of their material problems. A little more than 300 years ago, Sir Nicholas Bacon gave to modern science her first bum son, in the days when Elizabethan England was in the zenith of her greatness. When that son, Francis Bacon, became Lord Chancellor, he was already recognized as a philosopher. In him was thus early embodied the synthesis of world thought. He then laid the foundations of modern science. The great renaissance of learning began with Roger Bacon, almost 300 years before Francis Bacon. The torch of genius was then taken up by Leonardo da Vinci. It was thrown into the sky by Copernicus and Galileo. Their bold stand, in spite of ecclesiastical suppression, gave hope to the timid spirit of the age. The researches of Gilbert and Vesalius called out the slumbering genius of pre-Reformation days, and then came Francis Bacon, to call together the trading school of Europe. It was a time of general awakening from the dark night of medieval ignorance. Savonarola and Luther, John Knox, and the Wesleys came into the general stir not so much to inculcate science, but to awaken the stupefied spirit. At about the same time, in sleepy old India, Kabir Sahib and Guru Nanak were doing the same thing. They were trying to quicken the religious and spiritual instincts. In America, the Pilgrims were at that time too busy fighting the Indians and building themselves homes to bother too much about new concepts in religion and science. That came later. It was an era when the whole world was just beginning to sit up and take notice. Nevertheless, it was the birth period of modern scientific thought. Science has always had to contend with three powerful obstacles to its progress, each of which was almost insurmountable. These three are monarchism, priestcraft, and popular ignorance. Slowly and steadily science has been obliged to fight every step of its way against these three. Can anyone explain this obtrusive phenomenon of history? Science is today almost universally recognized as a great friend of man. Religion is supposed to be a friend of man, and yet the two have been in deadly conflict during nearly the entire period of known history. But science has had one strong ally in philosophy. The function of philosophy has been to take up the findings of science and give them a place in rational thought. In this respect, the services to mankind of such men as Bacon, Spinoza, Voltaire, Emerson, Berkeley, Kant, Hegel, Spencer, Schopenhauer, and even of Nietzsche, have all been of incalculable value to the genius of science in its battles for freedom. Darwin gave to the world a method of study. But philosophy has already said too much about evolution. Now, thanks to the light that could not be dimmed, monarchism is dead. There is not a single vestige of it left on earth in its old form. We need not take too seriously the phases of modern dictatorship. They will soon pass as chilly autumn winds. They are byproducts of a passing age. The second enemy of progress, priestcraft, is now almost an absurd anachronism. H.G. Wells calls it a funny old thing. It still exists in an anemic form, but time and science will finish it ere long. There remains now but one of the formidable three, popular ignorance, to block the progress of science, and even that is slowly passing away. In a recent tour of the world, this writer was amazed to find in almost every village of the remote corners of the globe that the English language is carrying the rudiments of enlightenment and establishing schools where the elementary sciences are being taught. Truly, this is the age of science, the dawn of universal enlightenment. A great spiritual awakening. To the discerning student, one thing more is apparent in this general forward movement of world enlightenment. It is the fact that, along with scientific education, there is a parallel current of spiritual awakening. The student has to look a little deeper to see this. It is not on the surface, like the scientific wave, and it has not affected so many people as the other. But today it is of tremendous force in the world. There was a time when Darwinism threatened to sweep all philosophy into the muddy stream of animal biology. Men were about to overlook the fact that souls existed. But again that light which no superficial speculation could dim for a long time has emerged from the fogs, and now it daily grows brighter. Materialism no longer sits upon her throne unchallenged. When Henry Bergson entered the arena of modern thought, he at once did something to smash the mechanistic theory of the universe, and to see in the world a complex whole, throbbing with light and life. Creative evolution was, to him, not an orderly universe evolving out of chaos by the blind impulses of physical force, but a thing of life and beauty, and above all, a thing of soul. Life is more than a piece of mechanism fortuitously thrown together by blind forces. Life is not simply protoplasm acted upon by chemical osmosis and electrical reactions. The duration of a living organism is dependent upon something more than a chance accumulation of cells gotten together by natural selection and held together by the survival of the fittest. Bergson was ashamed that men should be thought of as machines. And Bergson ventures to hope that life may outlive mortal limits. No barriers can be set up before the onward march of life. He declares that the whole army of the living is sweeping on to some mighty achievement, and at last it may beat down resistance and clear the most formidable obstacles, perhaps even death itself. Bergson comes closer to the point of this book when he says, to explore the most sacred depths of the unconscious, that will be the principal task of psychology in the century which is opening. I do not doubt that wonderful discoveries await it there. If the psychology of the West would lend an ear to the Eastern masters, they would not be long in making these discoveries presaged by Bergson. Thinking men have set up two radically opposed views in biological science. They are vitalism and mechanism. Vitalism presupposes a cause of life entering into matter from a plane of being above matter, as we know it. Professor H. H. Newman, of Chicago University, thinks that the vitalistic view is opposed to that hypothesis which has led to all scientific achievement. But we doubt the truth of this, however much the good professor may believe it. So all that the scientist needs to assume is the orderliness of nature and the universality of laws operating in the world of matter. This assumption is surely not opposed to the vitalistic hypothesis. The scientist may then proceed with security. But the ultimate cause of biological manifestations is quite another matter. We may assume that electricity works according to a set of fixed laws. No scientist will question this, but the cause or the source of electric energy still remains one of the unsolved problems of physical science. So it is with regard to the source of life itself. Like electricity, we see life's marvelous display of activity, but physical science does not presume to say whence it comes, nor whither it goes. The source of both electricity and life remains yet to be discovered by science. Why is this so? Because physical science has not yet the means of following either one of them to its ultimate source. Yet the masters have such means, and they would teach physical science if the scientist would permit them. One trouble has been that the advocates of the vitalistic theory have assumed the existence of an unknown, an unknowable force to which they attribute the phenomena of life. This has been the one weakness which has deprived them of any chance to establish their own theory in rational thought. If the subtle force is indeed unknown and unknowable, then we may not blame the materialistic scientist for his mechanistic assumptions. The one theory is about as good as the other, or as bad. The fact remains that the position of the physical scientists is not proven, neither do they claim that it can be proven. They simply assume it, and then believe it unscientific and undignified for them to acknowledge the existence of any force which cannot be demonstrated in their laboratories. And we cannot blame them for this attitude.